Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 3 Yards and a Cloud of Dust NFL podcast. I'm your host, Josh, and with me, as always, is my co host, Jonathan.
Hi guys.
So, we've got quite a bit to get through today. Lots happened in the last week. Some big news. But first, before we want to get started, we wanted to let you know we are very thankful for all the support that we've been getting in these first few weeks of our channel. But we really could use your guys' help. If please, for those of you that are listening that haven't subscribed, if you could go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, that would really help out the channel a lot. We have big plans for the channel. We want to expand and do other things. We also want to expand onto other platforms, so hopefully that'll help bring in some other views as well. However, we do still want to grow here on YouTube because we have big plans for this channel with other scripted shows. So, moving into the news for the week. One of the biggest pieces of news coming out of the NFL is quarterback Alex Smith has retired after a 15-year career. He obviously most known for playing for the Niners and the Chiefs. Of course, the last couple of years he played with Washington. After in 2019, he suffered that gruesome injury to his leg that had a lot of people reminiscing about another quarterback who got flattened in a very similar situation.
And
it was not pretty.
It was not pretty, and I actually did watch a video on one of the interviews he did for right after the injury. He wasn't sure if he'll even be able to play football before he came back. And what one of the doctors did that was actually pretty cool was he handed him a football during his rehab, and that's really what kept him going.
Yeah. And, of course, we all know the fact that he made the inspiring comeback last season, helped lead Washington to a playoff berth. Unfortunately, he was not able to play in the wild card game and then was subsequently let go from the team a few weeks ago.
But it was a mutual agreement.
Yeah. And there are rumors that potentially Urban Meyer from the Jacksonville Jaguars was actually trying to play for them as a backup for the presumptive number one overall pick, Trevor Lawrence.
But the main reason would be to help him get better as a QB.
Yeah, he would have been, most likely he would have just been a pure backup and wouldn't have been the number one guy, even with Trevor Lawrence coming in out of the draft.
Yeah.
Next up, we have another retirement from a notable Washington player.
Jordan Reed.
Yeah.
A tight end who retired after a 7-year career due to a concussion-related issue.
Yeah. Of course, he played most of his career with Washington, and then last year he got a chance with the Niners. And I'm thinking that it's kind of not only just the concussion-related issues, but also maybe the fact that he didn't perform as well last year when he was given the chance when George Kittle went down.
Yeah, and that's probably part of the reason, but that original concussion he got was pretty bad to begin with, and he was never really the same player again.
Right, yeah.
So, and we've seen that with multiple different players, and this ended up just being one of them, and that takes a big hit because he was a really good tight end until he got that first concussion.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate to see that concussions are still a frequency in the game, or they're as frequent as they are in the game. But I mean, it's football's a violent sport. You're gonna get hurt if you play the game. It's what's gonna happen. You have to be prepared for that. It's unfortunate to see his career cut short because of those issues. Because he was a staple for Washington for many years. He was right up there with some of the better tight ends. He was never really an elite tight end, but
he could play with the best of them.
He was a solid target.
Yeah. He was one of the better receiving tight ends.
Yeah.
And now we go down to some of the trades and signings, which first one is Cardwell Peterson to the Atlantic Falcons for 1 year, $3 million.
Cordero Patterson.
Thank you.
You're good.
I'm not good with names, so
well,
me.
There was talks of him visiting several teams after being let go from the Bears. Of course, he's known for being a utility player. He's never really been a standout wide receiver or running back. Where he has stood out is his kick returns, though he hasn't really made much of an impact even there since leaving the Vikings.
No, but he is still a decent running back, and he's still a decent kick return. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being a backup to a running back or number 2 spot for kick returns.
Yeah, and I mean, because of his size, he's not your prototypical wide receiver / running back, or I like to call them utility players, especially when they play multiple positions like that.
And it's a rarity when they do.
Yeah, but he's not, like I said, he's not your prototypical because he's taller, he's bigger, but he's still got amazing speed. So hopefully he can kind of revive some of his stuff here in Atlanta.
Yeah, and with the Falcons, he should be able to get some extra playing time because they do need a little bit of help when it comes to the kick returners and the wide receivers.
Yeah.
So he should be able to help out with them and kind of show, hey, I can still play all these positions still and really well.
Yeah. And next we've got some big moves going on in Las Vegas. Defensive tackle Maurice Hurst, defensive end Arden Key have been waived by the Raiders, which is big. I mean, because Arden Key and Hurst have been with the Raiders for a long time. I'm not so much upset about Arden Key being let go because he really didn't do anything while he was there, even though he was given several opportunities to. At one point, he was supposed to be the number 1 edge rusher on one of the sides. But it always felt like he had the potential to be really good, but he just never lived up to it.
No, and that was the biggest issue. It's like, you saw that he had the talent for it, but he was never able to put the whole thing together.
Yeah.
And because he is getting up there in age now, and the question is, will he actually?
Well, no, he's still fairly young. He's still in his mid-20s, so
mid to late 20s, yeah. But the question is, will he be able to put all of it together eventually within the next couple of years if he ends up getting on a team?
Yeah, but that's the thing there. Is he going to get on a team?
If he cannot, there's a good chance he would just end up as straight backups.
Yeah. Which is basically what he's been relegated to the last couple of seasons in Vegas and Oakland.
And I know he wants to be able to get to that starting role, but he has to figure out how to put all that together.
Yeah, he's got to figure a lot out.
And if he can't, he will stay as a backup, or they'll come to a point where he won't be able to even be on a team.
Yeah, and he kind of showed his immaturity level, too, with some of the comments that he had about the Raiders afterwards. I mean, you know what? I can understand being upset, being released from a team that you played your entire career for, but come on, keep it professional.
Yeah, frog in your throat.
A little bit. Now, the one that I am a little upset about is the releasing of Maurice Hurst. He was really good player. Solid, and he was improving. He was getting better every year. You know, he had flashes of greatness throughout his career with the Raiders. So I think with who they've got running their defense now, and with how much he improved this past season, yeah, I just don't like that. I don't like the release.
No, it's like, and he, especially with the new guys coming in, he would definitely been a good one to be on the team to help the new guys set up.
I mean, if nothing more, he would have been a good depth option.
Yeah, and he would definitely be a good person because he knows the position, he knows the game, and he would be able to help those younger players develop a little bit more. And, well, they would be able to come in like every few different ones would come in every few plays with him, and then a few without him with just the new guys, and he would be able to kind of see what they need to work on.
Yeah.
And so he would definitely have been a good player to keep.
And another move that the Raiders have made, they have released QB Kyle Slaughter outright. I don't think he's ever even had any game time.
No,
so,
he's been a third string almost the entire time, and he hasn't been able to...
I actually don't even remember him being on the roster last year, to be honest. So
he was a third string, and he just hasn't been able to get out there because either if Derek Carr gets injured, the second string is usually in though, and by the time he gets injured or can't play anymore, Derek Carr is already healthy.
Yeah, and remember last year they really didn't even, except for a few games, they really didn't even have Marcus Mariota activated for most of the season.
Yeah.
But another signing that the Raiders have done was they went out and signed corner Rasul Douglas. The terms of the contract have yet to be released, but I think this is a solid signing. They're getting a steal from the Panthers here.
Yeah, and because he is a solid cornerback, and he is definitely going to help that secondary a lot.
Yeah.
And being able to get up there and get those picks and knock swipe aways, that would definitely help the team.
Plus, he's only 25. He only has 5 interceptions, but he has several pass deflections. He's a good tackler. He was known for his ability to tackle with the Eagles. But he's like 6'2", 209 pounds, so he's a good size.
He's a good size. He's a little bit smaller than some, but he's at that right...
Not really. I mean, for a corner, that's actually pretty tall.
Yeah, but it's like he does have the ability to get up there and get those swipes from those wide receivers that are a little bit taller than him, too. And that's really what's going to help him.
Yeah.
So, and now we go down to the Cleveland Browns, who signed defensive end
Jadeveon Clowney.
Thank you.
So I'm struggling, so I decided to help him out preemptively.
I'm choking on a fog right now. And who signed for a 1 year, $8 million deal, but which I say is actually a decent good play by them because they do need that extra defensive end.
Yeah.
So that would definitely help
as long as Clowney can play the way he did in Houston and in Seattle, I think it's a good move. But if he struggles again like he did with Tennessee last year, then it's going to just turn out to be a bust. But it's only for 1 year contract, so
only for $8 million, which is still not much.
Yeah.
And then, but the Browns also relieve defensive tackle Sheldon Richardson, which I think was a bad move.
Well, he is getting a little older. I think I'm not entirely sure how old he is, but I mean, I can kind of. I guess for cost-cutting reasons, I can kind of understand the move.
But he
is still solid. He's a really good player.
Solid. He is still really solid, and he would definitely been able to help that defensive side. And that was definitely a big key factor on their defense. And without him, I'm not fully sure what's going to happen. They still have a solid defense still, but that was definitely a strong piece of the line that usually got through.
Yeah, I know we did our mock draft last week, and we said that the Browns were most likely going to go linebacker in the first round. This could be changing that up a little bit.
Yeah, they could easily be going for defensive tackle at this point.
Yeah, because right now I don't know who their number 2 defensive tackle is.
I don't know. I'm going to have to look that up a little bit later.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out. And then, of course, we've got the Seahawks have signed defensive end Aldon Smith to a 1 year, get this, less than $1 million deal. However, he is guaranteed $910,000 of it, with it being tied up in incentives. So he actually could end up earning more than $1 million with the Seahawks this year, as long as he's able to play. However, his eligibility to play may actually be in jeopardy here because currently there is a warrant for battery charges for him in Louisiana. And we know he's had some trouble with the law in the past. He's had a couple of DUIs that kept him out. A lot of his legal troubles kept him out of the league for 4 years.
And that's definitely going to be a factor, which is probably why they're only doing that $910,000 deal for 1 year because of all these issues. But if it does come back and he can't play, there's a good chance they can just strip that contract.
Well, and here's the thing: it's less than $1 million. They're not going to be losing out on a whole lot.
No.
So he had a very similar deal with the Cowboys last year, where he had a $2 million deal, but less than $1 million of it was, or just over $1 million of it was guaranteed, with $650,000 of it being incentivized.
Mm-hmm.
So
they really won't be losing much if this ends up going through.
And I mean, of course, he's known for his standout play with the 49ers. And his legal troubles led him to being released by the Niners, and then the Raiders picked him up, and he never really got a chance to play with the Raiders because of his basically his indefinite suspension that ended up lasting about 4 years. And of course, basically when the Raiders found out that they held on to him for quite a while too, even while he was suspended, because they kept trying to appeal the decision to get him reinstated, but it just never worked out. So when they finally realized that there was a chance he may never come back, they just let him go. And of course now the Seahawks, or the Cowboys, picked him up when he was first reinstated. Now the Seahawks have picked him up, and I think he can still be, he's only 31 years old, I think he can still be a really decent player on the line.
He has to get his off the field stuff under control, because if
absolutely.
he can't, he will be out of the league, period.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure if he gets suspended again,
no team will get him.
Yeah, it's
no team will take a chance on him.
This will be the last time, and his career may be over.
And he'll just have to worry about getting a normal job. And now we're going down to the Bears, who signed Maurice Goodwin for a 1-year deal. The deal hasn't really been out yet. All we know is a 1-year deal. But explain that one a little bit.
This is a really good pickup by the Bears. He was a really solid receiver for the Niners. So I think this is after who was it that they let go? They let go one of their decent receivers, but they let go of a defensive back. It was Taylor Gabriel that had retired. I think this is a move up, because I think Goodwin is a lot better than Gabriel ever was.
Oh, definitely, and I definitely agree with that one. And he is definitely a strong wide receiver, and he was getting a decent amount of hits, but just not enough to really show he's able to do it. And I have a feeling the Bears would be able to do something well with him.
Yeah, and this next piece of news I'll let you handle.
And it's actually the Dolphins who signed offensive guard DJ Fluko to a 1-year deal. How much, unsure at the moment. They haven't really put that out yet. But this is definitely a good pickup. Because
It is. They need help on the line. He's a solid guy. He's given up 25 sacks over his career. But remember, he's coming from the Baltimore Ravens with a quarterback who's been running around the pocket a lot. So you can't really blame all of those sacks on Fluker.
And Tua isn't really a big runner to begin with. He's more of a pocket. He will run when he has to, but he's more of a pocket quarterback.
Yeah, that is something I noticed. He does try to stick in the pocket a little bit more. He tries to. I think he's going to be one of those guys that
he's going to play more as a old school quarterback who stays in the pocket, and he is definitely going to probably develop into more of a scrambling one. But for the time being, he's going to be a pocket quarterback, and having DJ Fluko in front of him on the line would definitely help him from getting sacked.
Yeah.
Because he is definitely a strong lineman who knows how to stop the defenders.
Yeah, if he gets developed right, if Tua gets developed right, he could easily be almost like a left-handed Russell Wilson.
Yeah, and
even Michael Vick when he came back to the league.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You also don't see very many left-handed quarterbacks either.
Yeah, we've only seen a few in the history of the NFL.
And it's like having a left-handed quarterback that will throw a couple of the defenders off who come in from the left side, because now he's seeing everyone from the left side.
Yeah.
And now that means they have a disadvantage on that side, because you usually have the stronger guys to break around on the left side. And now he can see that, so he will be able to break around a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Unlike Derek Carr
it's a solid pickup. It really is.
Yeah.
Last but not least, obviously, is the Colts have re-signed veteran defensive back T.J. Carey to a 1-year, $2 million deal.
Which is actually a good pickup by the Colts.
T.J. Carey, he really has flourished since leaving the Raiders.
Yeah,
he played extremely well with the Browns. He played even better last year with the Colts. He's a little bit older, but I think he's still got a lot left in him, and he's not tall by any means. I think he's actually a little bit shorter than I am, and I'm only standing at about 5'10" and a half. So,
but he is definitely, and probably one of the biggest reasons why he's been able to flourish extremely well on the Colts is because their defensive coordinator is probably one of the best in the game to help develop the defense.
Yeah.
And because I want to say he's in one of the top 5 defensive coordinators in the NFL right now who can develop the defense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they had arguably the best defense last year, the Colts did.
Yeah, and so that definitely says a lot.
Yeah, and he was a big staple of that. So Gary was a big staple of that defense last year. So it was a good move by the Colts, especially now that they, hopefully have their potential
future quarterback,
franchise quarterback in Carson Wentz.
Yeah, and hopefully that works out because I really want that to work out for Wentz. But it's like with how he was playing on the Eagles and he's very injury prone, I'm just hoping this works out for the Colts. Plus, he was really getting hit a lot with the Eagles, so hopefully this helps out with making sure he doesn't get hit.
And that's about it for the news and updates from around the league. Or at least the most important ones. There's obviously been plenty of other signings that have been going on, but most of it is guys who are
not really
still
known.
new. Yeah, they're not really known, and they're probably not going to do a whole lot.
And
you never know. You might get surprised by a couple of them, though.
And we'll probably talk more about them if they get moved within the next couple of years because they'll actually their names will start getting up there.
Yeah. But there is a topic that I wanted to discuss today, and it's a little personal for me. It's not political or anything like that. It does have to do with the NFL. It has to do with a certain quarterback for my favorite team, the Las Vegas Raiders, and I think that prefaces it just nice for everybody.
Don't be hating. Don't be hating. I know the people out there hating right now.
But it was, every year for the last 7 years, I've heard so much crap come Derek Carr's way. And he's just not deserving of it. I'm sorry. He has basically been the heart and soul of this team since day one. Since he joined the team out of the draft. Now, I'm going to be the first to admit that when we drafted him 7 years ago in the second round, I didn't necessarily have high hopes for him, especially after seeing what happened with his brother David Carr and the Houston Texans. Of course, he had some good games, but it was, and I don't think the reason for him being as bad as he was entirely his fault because the Texans were still a fairly new franchise at the time, and they were just
trash,
god awful. Yeah. However, like I said, when Derek Carr was first drafted by the Raiders, I didn't have a ton of high hopes. However, he dashed that within his first few games. Like I think by the end of the preseason, I was already praising how good he looked. Because he did. He actually performed extremely well.
And he was doing extremely well for a rookie quarterback. And the only issue he had was that line that was not protecting him well.
Yeah, he was sacked several times in those first few years. His one biggest issue is probably the fumbles. But even then, the Raiders don't end up losing a lot of them. Now, mind you, they often happen in certain situations where, it doesn't matter. They have to give the ball away on the very next play anyways. But overall, he has done so much for this team. As a matter of fact, they went 3-13 in his rookie season, but there were a lot of other issues that needed to be addressed about that team.
Oh, yeah, because
you're talking about the team that was basically expecting Matt Schaub to be their next franchise quarterback.
Yeah, and you had
he got beat out by a rookie.
You had the offensive line who was trash that they had to basically scrap and rebuild. you had a couple wide receivers that you had to replace, and you had a bunch of the defense who had to be replaced on top of it.
Yeah.
They've been able to do that throughout the last 6 years. And look at the line now. They is solid, and they are able to protect the quarterback now.
Yeah, even with some of the guys that they let go this offseason, their signings that they've made have basically made up for that.
Oh, yeah.
Not maybe 100%. They're probably still going to be looking for some offensive line help in the draft. Of course, we picked them as taking a corner in the first round, so the line help will most likely come later on in the draft.
I'm guessing between second and third round is when they're going to probably pick one.
Yeah, I mean, I could easily see them taking a guard or a tackle in the second round. So, but what really kind of set me on the path of wanting to talk about this today was I was looking through my Facebook timeline, and I had seen somebody make a post saying how he wasn't an elite quarterback, he never put the team on his back, and that basically it doesn't matter what his stats were, it's all his fault. Is the gist of what the message was trying to say. Sure, I'll be the first to admit that he's not an elite quarterback. He has the potential to be one.
He is one of the better quarterbacks who is not fully developed all the way yet, but he has that ability to develop into elite quarterback.
Yeah, and you got to remember he's only 30 years old.
He is right in the middle of his prime, and his prime will probably go 2-3 years, and then he should be fully developed at that point.
Yeah, but the biggest issue that I'm having is people need to stop putting all of the blame on Carr. He's not the reason we're losing all these games. As a matter of fact, he's the reason we're winning the games that we are.
Yeah,
because it's certainly not the defense that's doing it.
No, it's mostly that the line is breaking down too soon, and the receivers are dropping the ball.
Yeah, but look at the 2016 season when the Raiders went 12-4, and then unfortunately they ended up losing the last game of the season, which they had the chance to clinch the division, and probably would have if Carr had been able to play. But unfortunately, he suffered that injury against the Colts the game prior, broke his leg, wasn't able to play in the final game of the season, wasn't able to play in the wild card game, which cost the Raiders their first chance at greatness in many years, and they exited the playoffs very, very early. And of course, they haven't been back since, which is unfortunate, but there's a lot of other things that have gone into that. The defense still that season, while they made a couple of key stops in some of the games, it still was never, the defense was not that great. I mean, how many fourth quarter comebacks did he have that season? He had like 7 or 8 of them.
Yeah.
And that's,
it was like half the season that he was making comebacks.
Yeah, and even against some of the games that should have been easy wins, the defense still looked terrible.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, the defense has been an issue for many, many years, and I think we need to start taking a look at that. I mean, obviously, that needs to be addressed, and it sounds like the team of John Gruden and Mike Mayock are really trying to do that with these last several drafts, and that's good because that is our biggest weakness, especially in the secondary, has been our biggest Achilles heel over the last 4 years.
Yeah, and something that you did show me that I want to point out real quick is if you look at all the quarterbacks who's been in the league with a minimum of 7 years, just in the 7-year span, look at the interception percentage, and Carr will be towards the top. Reason being, he has only thrown, percentage-wise,
he's got a career interception percentage of 1.9%,
which is extremely low for a quarterback.
Yeah.
Who's only been in the league for that long.
For those of you who may not understand what that means out of all the passes that he has thrown over his 7-year career, he has been intercepted less than 2% of the times he's thrown the ball. And he's got easily 3,000 pass attempts.
Yeah, so which means he's throwing them in a way, well, they're really hard to intercept, well, the defenders have to knock it away, or they'll either getting overthrown by getting batted away.
Yeah, and this past season, look at how long it took for him to throw his first interception. Because it wasn't until the Chiefs game, the second Chiefs game. It wasn't until the second Chiefs game where they almost came out and pulled that one out.
Yeah, and it's like when you look at it, it's like you really don't expect a lot from Derek Carr, but it's like really look at he knows the game, he knows what the plays are happening, and he can.
But one thing that's been proven time and time again, if you give Derek Carr the weapons, he will perform to the best of his ability. Look at what happened when he had both Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree and Jared Cook. You know, he had 3 elite weapons that could, I mean, Cooper was the speed threat, Crabtree was the possession threat, and then Jared Cook obviously was the big tight end. You know, he was the monster guy at the line.
And it's like you throw to the tight, you throw to Cook, he's running people over.
Yeah, but look at how many fades he threw to the end zone to Crabtree that year, that they went 12-4.
A lot.
Yeah, and you know
because no one was able to stop him.
Because Crabtree was known for having extremely good hands, he often came down with most of them, or he drew a penalty which got him another chance. I mean, look at what happened in that one Kansas City Chiefs game, where they drew like 3 penalties, one right after another, in the end zone to keep the game alive, and they ended up winning.
Yeah, and
so
if you really look at him, it's like he pulls down 80% of the balls he get thrown at.
Yeah, I mean, he never really he didn't have the greatest of speed, but he always had the great hands. And Cooper was the speed
guy. He has the power.
Now, Cooper has obviously gone on to have more success with Dallas, although the last couple of years have not been great for him. You know, a lot of people are saying, well, we had Cooper and then they let him go. Well, that's because Cooper wanted to go.
Yeah.
If you listen to the way he talks about his time in Oakland, he never liked being there. I don't think he ever wanted to be drafted by the Raiders in the first place.
He ended up just being sent out. He
was one of the moves that Gruden made when he came in and started to change everything. Same thing with Khalil Mack. I mean, now, don't get me wrong, I think Khalil Mack enjoyed being a Raider because he played extremely well, but the whole thing with Mack was, at that point in time, we didn't have great draft picks. We didn't have great draft capital. So while I didn't necessarily like the moving of Mack, I understood it from a financial and future point of view, because we got rid of a big contract, which allowed us to go sign other key players that the team needed. Plus, we were able to get several good high-round draft picks in order to help rebuild the team.
Yeah, and Cooper was just one of those players that he basically played though just to show that he can play extremely well at that high level.
Getting back to Derek Carr, he holds multiple franchise records in completion percentage, in touchdowns, in passing yards. And here's the thing, going back to the fourth quarter comebacks, you know, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, several others, Russell Wilson, they all have more fourth quarter comebacks, but you know who doesn't have more fourth quarter comebacks than Derek Carr? Aaron Rodgers. And the quote-unquote great Aaron Rodgers, who is most likely, even though he's only got one Super Bowl win, a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And he has a longer career than Derek Carr, but yet he's got less fourth quarter comeback. Now, mind you, that's due to the fact that he's had several really good defenses, so he hasn't needed to make the fourth quarter comebacks.
Yeah, and this just shows that
Once again, it comes back to the defense.
Yeah, it just shows the weapon Derek Carr is being on offense, doing that many comebacks.
Yeah. I mean, there have been so many games where Derek Carr has put up a performance similar to that of Manning or Brady or Rodgers, and then they still lose the game because the defense has let them down time and time again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the Raiders' troubles are coming back to the fact that the defense has been garbage for the last 10 years.
They just started getting good.
No, the defensive line is getting better, and of course the signing of Yannick Ngakoue is huge because now you have what I believe to be 2 elite pass rushers on both ends, with Max Crosby and Ngakoue, but
From what I was seeing from just last year, they started getting a little bit better compared to the last 9 years, but they weren't all the way there yet.
Yeah, no, they still were missing some key pieces. Of course, they had a lot of young guys out there in the secondary, a lot of guys who really didn't have a whole lot of game time, and of course they, because they had spent so much money on offensive stuff, they really didn't have the money to go out there and help their secondary, which probably should have been key. But it looks like they're changing priorities for this coming season. They made some good moves. We imagine they're gonna go defense heavy in the draft.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Of course, last year they went defense heavy in the draft as well, with signing 2 corners who, didn't have standout years. They didn't have great years, but they showed potential.
Yeah, and I really see them pulling more of like middle linebackers and linebackers on the defensive side to help their defense a lot.
Yeah. But now that the 2016 year when the Raiders went 12-4, Carr didn't even reach 4,000 passing yards. I think he had like 20 some odd touchdowns and like 11 or 12 interceptions that year.
Yeah.
But what really gives me hope for the team is the last 3 years in a row, he's had 4,000 plus yards in each of those seasons.
Yeah.
And the interceptions have gotten less.
And his touchdowns throughout the last 3 seasons have been about 67.
Yeah, he's got a total of 67 touchdowns through the last 3 seasons to only 27 interceptions.
Which is really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially for someone who's been in the league for 7 years.
Yeah, that basically means the last 3 years he's thrown 3 times as many touchdowns as he has interceptions, which is right about what you want.
Yeah. And it's like you can't really ask for much more than that. Because going 0 interceptions entire year is already hard.
Yeah.
Because you have a bunch of elite corners that know how to bring down the ball. But now having a quarterback that knows how not to throw interceptions, that helps the team tremendously.
Yeah. And, I got asked the other day by somebody who I was talking to online, and they asked me, how many times has Carr gone over 30 touchdowns in a season? 1. He's gone 1 time. And he's been in the league for 7 years now. You know how many times Tom Brady went over 30 touchdowns in his first 7 years? 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, he threw for more yards, but he threw for less touchdowns. Because they also had a decent running game to go with it. We only just got the guy who's essentially going to be our future running game for at least the next 5-6 years.
Yep.
And even he shows that he can't do it by himself. He needs help.
Yeah, and Derek Carr is that person to help.
And I really like the signing of Kenyon Drake. I think he's going to be the speed guy to Josh Jacobs' power back, because yes, he does have some speed, but he doesn't have overwhelming speed. He's never going to sit there and outrun somebody on a 90-yard touchdown run. It's not going to happen.
No.
Unless their secondary is just that slow. But
if the secondary is on lineman,
Jacobs is a guy that can still rip off 15 to 20 yard runs. But he's going to be that guy that's going to get you those hard-earned yards up the middle. But he's that guy that you're going to rely on the 1 to 2 yard line to get you over the end line into the end zone and get that hard-earned score.
And
he's proved that.
Yeah, he has proven that. He is one of those guys who's a short distance boost guy. He is definitely one of those guys who can actually go through and have that short distance bursts. Mm-hmm. That can get you that 15 yards that you need to get that first down to get a new set. Yeah. He's not a long distance guy. He's not known to break off for 50, 60 plus yards.
Yeah, and I think Jacobs is the kind of running back that is built essentially for a 2 running back system, where you've got one guy who's the speed and can go out wide and catch passes. And then you've got Jacobs as the power guy who you ram him straight up the middle and go for that score.
Yeah, and he has shown it multiple times, time and time again. It's like you bring out both your running back and bring him in as a fullback and use it as a double threat.
Yeah.
And it's like you've seen it. It's like they have pulled off a play where they both go off to the side. They hand it off to the fullback, and at the last second, he pitches back to the running back, and he takes off.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a big double threat because.
And that's another thing too, because their fullback Alec Ingold has actually been getting better and better ever since Gruden came in and took over.
Yeah,
so,
and he has that ability to be a double threat. Well, he doesn't have to toss the ball back if he doesn't need to. He can just take off.
Honestly, right now, I think the Raiders need one, and they could already have him in John Brown. But I think they need one taller wide receiver who's a sure-handed guy who maybe not overwhelming speed, but has decent speed to get downfield, maybe beat a defender to get open.
That quick first step.
And I know John Brown's not exactly very tall, but he's a solid pass catcher. He's quick. So he's almost kind of like Henry Ruggs, just to a lesser degree.
You want someone to have that quick first step to break off the defender and get downfield.
Yeah, I think the Raiders have a lot of good pieces on the offense, so I think Derek Carr is going to be solid over the next several years, or however long they decide to keep him, as long as they can keep the weapons with him. Because, I mean, how many times can you have a quarterback that's like Tom Brady who can still perform at a high level when they don't have weapons? Hell, even Drew Brees struggled when he didn't have all of his weapons in.
Yeah.
It's because of the fact that the Saints built their team to have so many viable threats on offense that Drew Brees performed so well when one of his top weapons, like Mike Thomas, went down, or back when they had Jimmy Graham when he went down. They still had other guys that he could go to and rely on. But when you had multiple of those guys ended up going down, that's when you saw Drew Brees struggle. There were several times where we saw Drew Brees struggle. Hell, even when he had all of his weapons, there were games where we saw him struggle early, only to turn it around late in the game.
Yeah, and you saw the reason for that was because he wasn't getting the protection, or the protection was really strong on the defensive side going downfield.
Yeah, and several episodes ago when we did our little tribute to Drew Brees after he retired, we highlighted the fact that his early years were very inconsistent with the Chargers. And it really wasn't until he came over to New Orleans that he had that incredible run with them, including the Super Bowl win. And everybody's saying he's Canton bound.
Yeah.
He's bound for the Hall of Fame. And I agree. I think he's been, obviously he's got several career records that are going to help him get there. He's only got the one Super Bowl, which is unfortunate because we were really hoping he'd get that second one before he went off and retired, because you've got guys like Peyton Manning and Eli Manning, and you've even got several guys like Dan Marino who never won a Super Bowl who are in the Hall of Fame. So
yeah, and that's definitely a big thing.
Yeah. But with all of that being said, this, at the end of the day, this is my opinion. I'm very supportive of Derek Carr. I think he's a lot better than people sit there and say he is. I don't think he's a game manager like some people have said he is. I think the Raiders have a really good quarterback, and going out and getting a better quarterback is not something they need to focus on right now.
No, they
need to focus on that defense, because when you figure out that defense, I guarantee you more wins will come. Games like last year when we lost to the Dolphins and we lost to the Falcons and we lost to the Patriots, those won't happen anymore when you figure out the defense.
Yeah, and that win with the loss with the Dolphins should not happen. The Raiders should have won that game. Yes,
I'll tell you, 4 losses that should not have happened last year. First, the New England Patriots. Okay. Second one was the second game against the Chiefs. Then you have the Atlanta Falcons. And then you have the Miami Dolphins. And those 4 games right there, you take that from their 8-8 record, you give them those 4 wins, what does that make them? It makes them 12-4 again.
Yeah, and I'm just saying
and playoff bound.
I'm just saying with the Dolphins game, the Dolphins should have lost that game. It was a bad move, hand placement on the defensive lineman to get the hand in the face.
And guess who was that committed that penalty?
Who?
Arden Key.
Why am I not surprised about that one?
Yeah, it was Arden Key, the one that was sticking his fingers into Ryan Fitzpatrick's face mask.
I'm pretty sure he was trying to injure him. Because with how he grabbed it and tugged his helmet, it looks like he was trying to injure him.
Yeah, but like I was saying, you figure out the back end of that defense because it seems like you've got the front end figured out, although I would really like to see Maurice Hurst come back. But, I mean, hell, they could end up going out and getting Sheldon Richardson.
Yeah, and that would definitely be a big booster.
Yeah, definitely. But it does seem like they've figured out the front end of the defense. Now they just got to figure out the back end. It looks like they're putting some pieces together. Like I said before, I think they're going to go into the draft and get a few more pieces. So I'm hopeful every year we go into a new season because everybody starts out at 0-0. So.
And as long as they can get the couple key pieces for this upcoming season, and they do it for the next year, 3 years, and keep focusing on that defensive end to strengthen that defense, and basically that last year kind of go back and forth, just try and strengthen both sides.
Yeah.
The Raiders will definitely have a strong team on the field all the time.
Yeah.
And
really,
that will definitely help Derek Carr get more wins for the team.
Yeah. We just got to avoid that second half of the season collapse that has happened the last 2 years in a row.
Because what's happening is the defense works decently well in the first half, but they get exhausted when the second half shows up and they just fall apart because they don't have enough weapons behind the starters.
Well, I think what's been happening the last couple of years was the fact that there's been this youth movement on the defensive side. So late in the season, they're hitting that wall because they're playing more games than they're used to at the college level, which may be an even bigger problem with some players this year who get drafted and didn't play at all last season. Because, yeah, you can still sit there and work out, condition, and do training and stuff, but, nothing's going to prepare you more like being in in-game situations.
Yeah, and being out an entire year or only playing one game really will help you when you get into the NFL.
Yeah, only playing half a season or something like that, that's really going to hurt you. But I think that's what's kind of been happening the last couple of years. We've been relying a lot of guys fresh out of the draft to make big impacts, and they've been doing that early on in the season, but then once you start hitting that 10th game, then they start to get tired out. They're not moving as quickly as they were earlier in the season. So
because they'll getting exhausted.
Yeah, naturally they're getting beat more because the guys that they're going up against have already been in the league for 3 or 4 years on most occasions. So they've already had that adjustment period.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, they've gone out, they've signed some good young veteran players who have been in the league for a few years. They understand what's going on. They're elite players. Especially, I can't go back to that signing of Yannick Ngakoue enough because that was a really big key move because not only does it give them a solid defensive end, but it also gives them that veteran presence who can help teach the other guys.
Yeah, exactly. But
so I think that's just about it. I think that covered everything I wanted to talk about.
We want to talk
about. That covered just about everything that we wanted to talk about. So, and I hope the talk about Derek Carr brings a little bit of light to the haters. I don't know how many of them are going to end up seeing this. I just hope that you are able to keep a little bit more of an open mind about, what exactly he's done for the team. You can sit there and say stats don't count. Sure, they don't. At the end of the day, it's about wins. But you can't sit there and lay the blame all on one player. Now, if he was throwing, 4 or 5 interceptions every game, then I can understand throwing the blame on him. But the fact is, He's got one of the lowest interception percentages out of any quarterback in the league right now. Since he's come into the league, he's got one of the lowest.
Yeah.
Yes, he does have a bit of a fumble issue,
And
but he less than 40% of those that have been lost to the other team. So even that's not as big of a problem as many people make it out to be.
because he's either able to get back or the linemen are strong enough to get on top of it before the defense can.
Yeah.
So he has weapons around him when that does happen to get the ball back.
Yeah, so just laying the blame on Derek Carr solely is not good enough because it's a combination of not having the proper pieces on both offense and defense, and then it's also the coaching too.
And
you got to understand.
This is a team sport too. So it's like you can't always just throw it onto one player because the defense has Derek Carr's not on the defensive side.
Yeah.
Which means you can't.
I mean, there have been many times where he sat there and he's led the team on multiple long drives and scored, 25, 30 to 35 points in a game, and they still lose because the defense couldn't do their job and stop them. So,
yeah.
But anyways, that's, we're rambling again. So, I think that's going to cover it today. We really appreciate everybody listening in. We thank you all for all the support. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I know we talked about it at the beginning of the episode. We just want to reiterate.
It would definitely help us grow the channel and be able to do what we want to do because we do eventually want to be able to put out at least like once a month, be able to do a video podcast where we chat about a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah. Plus, we have other scripted stuff that we want to do, but we need to get more listeners in before we can start doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but once again, thank you all. We love you. We appreciate all the support that you've given us. Until the next one, we'll see you later.
Bye.